So my name is Mark Stark. I live in California, in the United States. And I have a son who was born 26 years ago, Robert, and he had health issues from birth. He actually needed quite a few surgeries on his back, on his skull. And we suspected something was wrong, but we really did not get a diagnosis until he was 5 years old. And at that time, we learned he had a rare genetic disorder called alpha mannosidosis. At that time, it was still experimental, but the best treatment was a bone marrow transplant. So we did have a bone marrow transplant when he was 5. He rejected the first one. We had another one when he was 6. He was very ill from that. But he recovered and is doing well now. But because it was fairly late that he was diagnosed, 5, and not successfully transplanted till 6, he still suffers from pretty severe disability, developmental disability, so a learning disability. He's also physically short in stature. He's only about 4 feet 10 inches, and so he currently was in a special needs program in school, and now he is in a special needs adult program. He's in pretty good health, but he continues to have bone and joint problems. So he's had to have hip surgery twice and a couple more back surgeries. Around the time that he was diagnosed, we went on the web and I found ISMRD, International Society for Rare Diseases. And we joined at that time. At first I went to a meeting and then they asked me to join the board. So I've been a board member for 20 years of ISMRD. And so that's a bit about our background. And I could tell you more about the organization and probably the next question.
Thank you a lot. So, okay, it's a good idea to tell us about the institution. What are the major goals and what you are planning now for people with alpha mannosidosis? So
first of all, ISMRD was formed about 25 years ago, 23 years ago, in 1999, by 2 parents whose children both had alpha mannosidosis. And at that time, it was just focused on alpha mannosidosis. And the objective was just to find other people, get information. It now includes several other rare diseases. They're all in the family of so-called oligosaccharide storage disorders, where that's a specific oligosaccharide molecule is the one that's not being properly removed by enzymes because of enzyme deficiencies or enzyme transport problems. This includes mucolipidosis, salicidosis, and a couple of other disorders. We have 2 real objectives for families. First of all is to put them in touch with other families that have gone through similar experiences, so that we try to connect mucolipidosis families with other mucolipidosis families, alpha mannosidosis families, so they can get some experience on what to expect in terms of course of the disease, what kind of treatments to get, what kind of therapy to get, what kind of government programs are available. We're a global organization, so we have board members all over the world, including 1 board member in Brazil. And what we try to do is to help connect people to local individuals that have a similar experience. The other objective we have is to raise money for research. And so we, in partnership with a number of drug companies, we do put together a regular symposium. Because of pandemic, we haven't had an in-person symposium for several years. Our last one was in 2019 in St. Louis in the United States. The previous one was actually in Rome 2 years before in 2017. Because of the pandemic, we haven't had a face-to-face one, but we are planning a virtual one early next year. The purpose of the symposium is twofold. One is to bring together researchers. Because this is a rare condition, the researchers are all over the world and don't necessarily get a chance to get together that often. And so we put together a forum where we're focused on research on specific treatment, basic pathology, mechanisms, and promising treatments like gene therapy. And we have different technical sessions. We have for those we get a technical individual or the person that's going to drive the scientific program, the primary researcher, and they recruit papers from all over the world. And then we raise the money to hold the symposium to bring the people from all over the world. And in parallel with that, we hold a patients conference where we have events and activities for families, including some daycare for the children so the parents can attend workshops. Some of them are, parent workshops where parents talk about their experiences and ideas. Some of them are, we bring people from the technical conference, excuse me, over to meet with the families and talk to them about specifics of, try to give the parents a chance to ask questions from the technical people, the researchers about what's going on in diseases. And then so that's one way that we sponsor research. The other way we sponsor research is we do have some direct fundraising for some promising research. Right now, what we're doing is funding a gene therapy project. It's an animal model for now for mucolipidosis. And so that's kind of a summary of what we do. We don't charge any admission fee for families. We're an all volunteer board, so we're a very small organization. We don't have any paid employees, but we have been around for a while. We've been around for, as I said, 23 years. And I am currently the treasurer of the organization. In the past, I've been the president, and I've been on the board since 2002, so about 20 years.
This is an amazing story. Congratulations. It's such, it's pretty complicated. We know by heart how complicated it can be to help those people to find information. And it's amazing. You have a Brazilian member.
Yes. She actually just joined our board in the last year. But Patricia Greibel is her name.
How many patients do you have with alpha mannosidosis?
So we're in contact. We have people that have been in contact with us and given us their information, about 119 families around the world with alpha mannosidosis specifically. There's about almost 200 families for all the diseases, but just alpha mannosidosis is about 119. I just looked it up. I just checked our database before the meeting. We have the same situation. It's you've got to try. It's a very rare disease, so it's not the first thing people look for. Actually, one of the other things that we're working, not just by ourselves, but in partnership with other organizations, is to try to improve early diagnosis of lysosomal storage disorders in general. And I think there is one that has been approved in the United States for, it's not alpha mannosidosis, but it's another like lysosomal storage disease. But the ability to use, there's a lot of newborn screening that's done with a blood stick. And if we can find a cheap, easy diagnosis from a blood stick at birth, then we could very early identify these kids. But we do have the experience of our son also. It was, because it was 26 years ago, it really was an exclusion process, and it took quite a while to get to a diagnosis.
Okay. This is the last one. I think it will be great if you would like to leave a message for the Brazilian patients.
So the message would be, get as much information as you can, as soon as you can. If the treatment option of stem cell, the stem cell treatment, which is the same for MPS, that is the best treatment known now. If it's done early, it's safer, and it's has a pretty good success rate. However, just that alone won't solve all problems. So be prepared to to have support for learning disabilities, to have support for potentially orthopedic problems, especially hips and joints. So if you address those things early, the quality of life for your child will be much better. And also, the expense to the family later on will be less. And finally, you're not alone. There are a lot of families. So please reach out. You can reach out to our board member. Although her child has a different disorder, she's very familiar with, about life in Brazil and what you can do there. But you can reach out to anyone around the world if you have specific questions about the disease. That's kind of what we try to do, is put people in touch with other families with similar experiences.